Hello, and everybody, and welcome back to another week of the Rings of Power Fellowship of Fans deep dive and analysis. We're tackling episode 5 this week, and once again, we have Strider with us as always.
Hey,
We have V,
looking forward to this.
Hey everyone, how are you doing?
and then we have some fantastic special guests this week. We have the Melonheads, two brothers, Dave and Johnny. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves. Why don't you tell our audience a little bit about what you guys do and your relationship with Tolkien and all that good stuff.
Sure. Yeah. So hey guys,
Take it away,
thanks
Dave. You go first.
Thanks for having us back on. It's been a while, as we said. It's been a minute, but I'm Dave. I'm one half of the Melonheads duo. My brother is Johnny below me here. We've been doing this Lord of the Rings / Middle Earth podcast for, I say, about 4 years now. It's called the Council of Elrond podcast, so you can see our Twitter there. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Castbox, wherever. And yeah, basically myself and my brother, we grew up, first of all, being introduced by watching the Peter Jackson movies, and then progressed on to the books several times, and then started on the Silmarillion. And now we just wanted to have a safe space to talk about Lord of the Rings all the time, because that's what we did anyway. So you can check us out on Twitter. We're also on Instagram, Melonheads Official, and also doing YouTube videos at the moment. So doing breakdowns on the Rings of Power, the good and the bad. We're not shills, we're not haters. So yeah, go check us out. But thanks for having us on, guys.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Absolutely.
Love it to have you here.
Always good to have members of the larger fellowship joining us. I think. Oh, and I also want to give a shout out real quick. We've got Kyle on the back end today, helping us with the images and the video and everything. So big props to him for doing such a great job every week. Really quick, I feel like we always go like right into the episode, and almost like we're like not friends or anything. I just want to check in. How you guys doing this week? Strider, anything exciting, fun happened this week? And then any good TV shows or movies or books that you read?
This week has been a bit busy at work and all that, but honestly, the Rings of Power hype is kicking in properly. Finally, it hasn't kicked in ever before, but since the beginning of season 2, it's like I'm having fun, actually having fun. But other movies, I just have like a reignited love for Mad Max Fury Road, which in my opinion is one of the best movies ever made, in many ways at least. And I just cannot recommend that movie enough. I've been rambling about it for like couple of weeks now. So that's been the other thing that's not the Rings of Power at the moment. And yeah, highly recommend it.
Cool. How about you, V? Anything especially fun happened this week, or any pieces of media you want to share with everybody?
Well, Fellowship of Fans wise, we just reached 70k followers on Twitter, and it was a really proud moment because it's really nice managing Twitter. But life wondering wise, if you haven't seen me raging on my personal Twitter about med school, I just passed another exam. I have my last one tomorrow, and finally I will be free of this mess. And as always, I'm rewatching House MD because I need something like to boost me during med school exam period, and having a TV show about medicine, I don't know, it just fit me. So that's about it about my life.
And of course, House is 100% medically accurate, and everyone should pay attention to everything it says, right? Dave, Johnny, what
How
about
about you, Gregory?
Oh, me? I had a conference this weekend actually that went really well. It ended like an hour and a half ago. Yeah, it was really fun. I think because of that, the only thing I watched this entire week, I think, was Rings of Power episode 5, and I enjoyed it. So, you know what? I just finished the Mistborn trilogy this last week, which I'd never read. Brandon Sanderson, really fun. My personal opinion, not quite at the level of like Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, but I guess what is. But a really fun fantasy read nonetheless. Dave, Johnny, what about you guys?
One thing that I shouted out in our most recent podcast is I've been watching Ozark recently, and it only clicked with me this week that Peter Mullins, the guy that plays Duran the Third in the Rings of Power, is on that show as well, and he's crazy, man. So I know where he's drawn that inspiration for Duran, because that guy's nuts. So that's the media that I've been engrossing myself in. I've pretty much binged 2.5 seasons of that in the last couple of weeks. But yeah, other than that, I'm enjoying the lovely Dublin weather. We get it very, very rarely. But it was actually a beautiful day today. So yeah, please come to our country.
So in other news, Dave and I, we have a sister, and she also just gave birth just less than 2 weeks ago. So that's also been the other big news for us. We've been kind of, well, the whole family's been kind of crazy about that. So we became melon uncles for the first time. So that was nice.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
That's what was happening outside the world of media and things like that. But apart from that, I kind of like you, Gregory, I've been quite busy. So the only thing I actually think I watched this week was The Rings of Power, and I had to watch it several times and then discuss it on several podcasts. So yeah, I haven't had much time for anything else.
Well, that seems like a good segue now that we've finished pretending like we're normal people with normal lives. I've seen a lot of people, I think, so Strider already put in the chat, that what do people think of this episode? I think the most common thing I've seen just looking around is that it seems to be a lot of people's, if not their favorite of the show, at least their favorite of the season. That seems to be a pretty, maybe the most common take. And I want to get a quick sense from you guys. Where do you fall on that? Is this like one of the best episodes in your opinion, or do you think it's been a little bit overblown? Like, where do you guys come down on that? And let's, before, rather than getting to long answers, I just want to get a quick, quick answer from all of you really quick. We can go from bottom to the top. So let's start with Johnny.
Yeah, for me, by far the best episode of this season for sure. For the series as a whole, including season one, I don't know where I would rank it, but maybe not exactly at the top. But as I said, this season, yeah, easily number one.
Dave?
Yeah, I think some elements of this episode are the best in the whole show, but there are some elements, especially Numor, that we'll get into later, that I really thought fell flat in its face. But yeah, I think best episode of the season, not of the entire show.
Cool. V?
I mean, it's up there with episode 2, which was my favorite so far. So I think it's kind of equal for me. I don't know about season 1 because I will have to rewatch everything to like rank it at the end, but it has very good points. I would feel I would need a bit more building up in some points, but we will get into that later.
Yeah.
On my side, I think every episode so far for me has been better than any episode of season 1, just like across the board. Episode 4, the divisive one, has been my favorite so far, but it is kind of like it's tied with episode 5. They just scratch like very different itches, like in terms of the vibe of the story. But yeah, episode 4, episode 5, kind of like on the same level for me, but really, really good. Like, this is really proper storytelling at this point. It's really good talking, good fun. Love it.
Well, if anything, it's just nice that it seems like there's a bit of a consensus that things are heading in the right direction, at the very least. And I agree with you, Dave. I think there are moments that still, for me, fell flat, but it's certainly better than some of the stuff we've seen the first 2 seasons, and I'm definitely excited about that. We had 3 major storylines this week, right? We spent a lot of time with the dwarves, a lot of time with Numor, and a lot of time with Antar and Celebrimbor. And I think I want to start with let's start with Antar and Celebrimbor. I was really excited to get back into that storyline after a brief hiatus last week. And really quick, Strider, let's just get your sort of pulse on that. Did you think that, just generally speaking, they handled that storyline well this week?
Yeah, just very clear. Yeah, Chris, Charlie Wickers has been absolutely nailing it. A lot of good lines that carry a lot of meaning, like the one Kilgore says about scoping the thoughts and so on, like putting your ideas, and then the people think that it's theirs. Like a lot of really good lines, a lot of going on. Amazing sadly, but amazing manipulation.
Yeah. V, how about you? Did you feel that the dynamic is sort of for you? Is it capturing everything that you sort of expected from these scenes and this process of seeing the different sets of rings being made? One thing I'm gonna call out in particular is that obviously there are certain elements of the order and the length of time with this stuff that has changed a lot of it in order to deal with the time compression elements. How do you feel that they're navigating those questions?
I mean, definitely the deception is there, and I feel like it's not even the maximum that we will be seeing even more by Antar in the future episodes. So I feel like they are going in a very good direction for the start, because we are not that deep into the relationship yet, I feel, but we are getting there definitely. And as for the order of the rings and sets, I've heard, I mean, there are a lot of good criticisms. I like that they chose to go with the flow of the poem instead of the flow of the historical accuracy that there is in the Second Age, because it fits the time compression, but at the same time, I feel we are getting a bit rushed. Like, the 7 haven't even been given out to the Dwarf Lords yet, and we are talking about the 9. Because, like, it's mainly because of King During the Third, but again, wouldn't Another want to make sure that the 7 are given out properly? So that's my only question about the rings and how they're made and how they're given out. So I'm waiting to see where it would go, but it's fine for now, I guess.
Yeah. We'll jump around some, and I'm probably not going to do every storyline completely all the way to the end individually. And you bring up something that I want to ask about. The 7 Dwarf Lords, right? There's this, we see Duran 3 and these sort of preconditions that he's setting for giving the rings to the other lords. It's a fairly quick, we're seeing the results of the power of this ring turning into, greed and stuff pretty quickly. And I guess maybe this is a bit of a two-part question, I guess, for you, Dave. Do you think that the 7 rings, like, do you like to see the way that they're using the sort of element of the ring tapping into sort of the greed of the dwarves? And do you think that feels like commensurate with your understanding of the lore, or is it hewing a little too close to what we associate with the sort of what's caused by the effect of the One Ring itself?
Yeah, you're right, because I think in this show, or in this episode in particular, they make the dwarven rings seem very similar to the One Ring that we know in Peter Jackson's movies, and the dwarves aren't necessarily supposed to be corrupted by these rings at all. And I thought it was way too quick for Duran to react the way he did. He not only went from being completely not greedy to completely greedy, but he seems to be losing his mind. And myself and my brother discussed this before, that maybe the show should have made him already a greedy character rather than him being very much like, don't mind for Mithril, let's just, be extremely careful. And now he's suddenly like, I don't care, let's take out this foundation wall. Where's this greed coming from? I don't think that's very lore accurate. I think his greediness should be embellished more from the powers of the ring. Like, it shouldn't really be a drastic change for him. But other than that, I still think that doesn't make me, it's kind of a nitpick, but it doesn't make me hate what they're doing with the rings. I feel like because of this time compression, that is a small change in the grand scheme of things. So I think out of all the changes that the show has made so far, I don't think this is the biggest problem for me.
Yeah, but to sort of rephrase this, you're sort of saying that if it is sort of exacerbating some negative flaw, it should be based on a character flaw that we've already sort of seen, and sort of extending that rather than creating new character flaws that haven't been a part of his character at all.
Yeah, well, the main question is, how is this? If we can see how it's affecting Duran the Third, how is the ring going to be passed down to Duran the Fourth when he's spotted evil in the ring and he swears that he would never put it on? The ring is supposed to be passed down generation through generation, and it's supposed to slowly make the dwarves grow greedy and delve too deeply until that's the end of them. But it should be not just like it shouldn't just be making their flaws amplified, but it should be amplifying their good qualities as well, and their powers. But this just looks like a wholly evil ring, when I definitely don't think it should be going down that path.
Yeah, I think that it definitely feels. Or Johnny, what do you think? Do you think this is something that is sort of a result of the element of time compression, or do you think that there's should they be able to handle this in a way that, regardless of the aspect of time compression, do you think that they should still be able to handle this sort of effectively?
I suppose, I think we spoke about this like extensively, that the decision to have the time compression really just had this massive knock-on effect, and there's all these kind of butterfly effects of what they kind of needed to do. And it almost seems like they had this time compression, and now in season 2 they're almost trying to write themselves out of the things that, like the corners and the boxes that they put themselves in season 1. And again, the decision to make the 3 Elven rings first, I'm still waiting to see why this was made, and why this is. Some people are saying, oh yeah, well, I can see why it's better TV to do it this way. And I mean, maybe it is, but if someone could explain that to me, I'd be very grateful, because for me, I think if they just did it in the order that they were done in the books, it would have been fantastic television as well. So but I wouldn't say it's just for one reason. I can't put my finger on one reason why it is like this, but I would also agree with lots of the things that Dave said as well, that I think that the rings, we know that they shouldn't be just making this person evil as soon as they put it on. There should be a real delayed change of character. If there is going to be a change of character, we could see that like over a longer period of time. And if you take a show like Breaking Bad, for example, you start off with this character who is a very good character, and by season 6, you don't even recognize him compared to season 1. And there was never one episode where he just drastically changed. It was just small incremental changes over a long time. Now, maybe we don't have time to see that kind of change, but I think just from one scene to the next scene is just a bit too much and a bit too drastic. And I think we've seen that with other people as well. I don't want to jump around too much, but Aarian as well in Numor, she's a kind of another character who just had a very kind of flip-flop sort of character, like personality change. So I think it's all going to be a result of the time compression, really. Yeah.
And on that line, I want to spotlight the comment we had from Julia about Duran's ring. We just had it up, but Kyle, if you wouldn't mind pulling that back for a second. Duran's ring is supposed to be passed down the line to his descendants. If the ring makes him so greedy and selfish, I can't imagine Duran willingly passing it down the line. And I think that's a really good point based on what they're showing us, right? Let's see. Strider had an idea. He wants. I think this is a good idea. Let's just run this in the background while we're talking about other stuff. I'd love to get a poll of the episode, like the rating. So maybe let's say, Kyle, maybe we make 3 options. Let's say like less than 5, 6 to 8, and then 9 to 10. See what the audience thinks. We'll get to Aarian in a bit, because I agree that that's an aspect that it seems to be a little flip-floppy or going too fast or something, or maybe we're missing some components of it. I want to pull back to well, actually, I want to stick with the dwarves for like one more moment. Let's talk about this. What do you think, and Strider, what do you think, like lore-wise? Do you think it sort of, is there a rationale that can be made for the way that the magic is sort of working in terms of his ability to sort of see the mountains, know where the shafts of light are going to come through, and also this element of suddenly deciding to delve deeper, right? Like it seems like sort of blind, and as you guys said earlier, sort of this component of like almost an evil ring that he can't see. He can see all the tunnels, but nothing else. Well, what do you guys? What do you think, Stred? Is this sort of commensurate with the lore, or like what's your take on that?
So I think maybe we could see this. That was a weird accent. See this as perhaps this enhancement of his natural gifts with understanding the mountain, because I always thought that was a cool thing that they added this stone singers thing in the Dwarven culture. I always thought that was a pretty cool idea because
Yep.
doing something with song in Middle Earth like that, you couldn't do more talking than that. So the fact that dwarves have this thing added in their repertoire is pretty cool. So perhaps the ring enhances that. We don't really have any particular. Well, the thing with the rings is they were all made for elves in the lore, and what happens to the dwarves? They are not affected, or actually, rather, what's interesting is what happens to the men because they are mortal. Their bodies, their souls get worn out, and they turn into wraiths. That's like a short version of it. While dwarves are made to be more resistant by owls, so they don't suffer these effects. They don't lose their minds over the rings. They don't get manipulated. They can be controlled by Sauron. All these things, but it just enhances their like greed in a way. So that's kind of the only thing. So I guess not really in the lore, but here we can maybe just like see it as it enhancing this magical connection that a king of dwarves apparently has with his mountain, which I think it's a pretty cool approach, I guess. Like especially with in a show, you kind of have to show some kind of abilities. So I think it's cool. I have to maybe wait and see a bit more of it, but I think overall it's a pretty cool approach.
Hey,
Not
Kyle.
necessarily something that we have a basis in the lore that much.
Kyle, I would love if you could put up the results from the poll. Let's end it now because I actually have another poll that I want to put up. That has to do with the dwarves. We were just talking about the delving deep, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and Disa awakens something. And I think one of the theories that I've been seeing go around here is that it's not in fact the Balrog, which we've seen obviously starting in season 1, but it's actually the Watcher in the Water. And I want to get a poll on what people think it is. And do any of you guys have a particularly good argument one way or the other? Let's see if we can get someone arguing one direction and then the other direction. Who wants to take on Team Balrog?
Well, if I could jump in on that, I think immediately that's what they were kind of pushing, and I'm not sure if we all know exactly what a Balrog sounds like, but it certainly sounded like a Balrog to me when we heard it in the show. But then later on, when Duran came in and was trying to argue the case with his father, Prince Duran came in and was speaking to King Duran, and he told his father that Disa heard something, and he said that he quoted a nameless evil, ancient and powerful. And those were the words that he used. And I think we all know what that is referring to. So for me, I was like, okay, well, that's pretty much done and dusted that it's going to be a Balrog. But again, maybe it's just another way to try and throw us off the lead and to, have a little pop-up. Oh, it's actually the Watch in the Water. So I don't know. But for me, if I were a betting man, I'd be putting my money on Balrog all day.
Who wants to put the money on Watcher in the Water and give us the argument why? Huh?
I can
go for it.
I can say this. I do think it's the Balrog because it makes sense in the story, like in the story of the show. But it kind of feels like it does kind of feel like a misdirect because this is like the scene screams the Watcher in the Water or some other kind of similar creature, right? But I feel like it would kind of be a waste of the limited screen time if they went for the more logical situation-wise, the more logical option. I feel like it is probably Balrog, but like it would kind of make sense with the scene and the setup that it is the Watcher in the Water. So it's kind of like a cop-out answer, I guess.
I saw someone making the argument that if you pay attention to the sound, it's a similar sound to what was used in the Jackson trilogy to indicate that the Watcher in the Water was coming. I personally assumed it was a Balrog, but it's just good to know that there's some other people who have are thinking it's going the other direction. Let's come back to well, what's that say? I think Duran would just Duran would assume every nameless beast is ancient and powerful. That's fair. That's fair.
Good point.
Let's see. The stone could be amethyst, stone of peace. You think its shattering could hold deeper meaning or bad omen for what's to come? V, what do you think? Do you think it's an omen?
I mean, we do have the theory. I don't know if you have it in your countries. If you break a mirror, you have 7 years of bad luck. So, Balkan here representing. I mean, I could definitely see it being an amethyst. It does look like that. That was my initial thought when I saw the stone and the color and everything. Shattering glasses, I don't know. It's not, or stones more particular. I don't think it's good, especially when it's a birthday gift and you destroy it before you give it away. So, bad omen or not, nothing good can come from that kind of sound and that kind of setting. So, yeah.
Fair enough.
It would be really cool if that was the case.
Let's
It
bridge
was like
this.
intentional.
Oh,
yeah.
Go ahead, starter. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say I was agreeing. I think if this was the case, that would be a really, really cool little Easter egg for people who know their stones. Like it would be really cool. Carry on.
I want to make a bridge back to Celebrimbor and Antar, and that bridge is going to be Narvi, who got put in a pretty difficult position here in terms of having to obey his king, and when it seems like there could be something dangerous going on. But a particularly interesting moment in this episode is the reveal of something that every Lord of the Rings fan knows, and in fact, the namesake of Dave and Johnny's melon heads. So for the two of you, I want to ask, was that moment of getting to see the famous Doors of Duran, did it live up to the hype for you? Were you like, oh, it's the thing, they did the thing, it's our thing? Like, what was the reaction for you guys seeing that? Did you think it was well executed, or what was your opinion?
I really enjoyed seeing the design and seeing the Doors of Duran. Actually, that's actually something I usually struggle to say.
Congratulations, Dave. You said it correctly.
Yeah, but I think we knew, probably from you guys, Fellowship of Fans, that we were going to see the construction of the Doors of Duran this season. And I think that was probably something we hypothesized years ago, that this is something that will happen in the Second Age, and it'd be great to see it. So I was certainly expecting to see the actual crafting, the building, the friendship, especially of Celebrimbor and Narvi. And I think the show might have sacrificed the friendship of those two for the friendship of Elrond and Durin instead, which is fine. So seeing it in this episode, there was a small part of me that I was like, oh, right, we didn't get the build up, but it's nice, and it's a nice cameo. And I don't know if it's gonna play a big important part in the season going forward, but we were wondering though, why was it built in Eregion and not in Khazad-dûm? Are they gonna, get a DHL delivery over to Khazad-dûm, or what's that going to be like?
That was one main question. The other main question was, why didn't they have the big reveal outside under Moonlight, which would have been a lot more effective as well, I suppose. And they were kind of saying, look, the design is completely invisible without Moonlight, and we're looking at the image now, and it's visible. We can see it. So I think it would have been a lot more effective if they just had it glowing like we saw in the Fellowship of the Ring.
That's such a good point. Like, why was that not revealed at night? I mean, like, the first rule of film: show don't tell.
Show don't tell.
Just like, it's made of this material.
Yeah,
it would look so cool outside.
If only we could see it, it would be great. Yeah.
But I guess they might save it perhaps for some time when Sauron wants to get in there, and it's like, cool. No, buddy, this is why, and then they show it. Maybe that would be a cool way to give it the reason why they didn't do this, because honestly, this would have been a really good way to show it.
Let's hope Sauron doesn't say melon.
Do you think that we're going to see, as the inevitable, as I'm sure we're going to get over the course of the season, the fall of Khazad-dûm, or I guess the protection of Khazad-dûm at first, right? But what do you think that we're going to get a chance to see this door play a significant role at some point over the next few seasons?
I
A
can throw in
significant role. I don't think it's going to be a significant thing, but I think that we might get a second reveal, if we can say it that way. So this is like the big reveal of the doors, and then maybe in, I don't know, maybe in a later episode in this season, or maybe early in season 3, we might get another, just like, oh, here they are now we actually get to see them under the moonlight, and we see that the Ithilden light is working its wonders. But I can't see them saying, like, I mean, this was the moment to make a big deal about the doors, I think. And as just to echo what Dave said a moment ago, I think it was great to see them, but I think what really kind of made me feel a little bit disappointed in this moment looking at them was, okay, so this is probably going to be the last time maybe we get to see Celebrimbor and Narvi together in a room. And we could see that Celebrimbor was like, making little jibes at him and saying, hey, keep an eye on him. He's a bit of a thief. Like, so you could see that they clearly have a good friendship and a good relationship where they're kind of making fun of each other. So it would have been a little bit, it would have been great to see that a little bit more play out on the screen, where we got to see them, crafting, like they're two master craftsmen. So it would have been fantastic to see them kind of learning from each other as well, and teaching, okay, here's a skill that the elves, whatever, and the dwarves do it this way, and kind of, showing that the respect that they can have for each race as well. I think that could have been a great element. But so it's, seeing that the doors have already been constructed, we're like, well, we're not going to get that.
Yeah, I think this storyline was where I perhaps felt the compression aspect most keenly. In that, we partly because Celebrimbor says, they said that we'd never be, elves and dwarves could never work together. Now look at our friendship that happened over the last 2 hours of screen time. And it's supposed to be something that these two societies have been working together, and it's like this great collaboration, societally speaking, not just one project. At least was always my impression reading it. One thing I have to say that I really liked in this episode, and this is just the Tolkien nerd part of me, was the name dropping of some first age heroes. V, did you know that they had the rights to do that, or were you surprised by that? What was your take on all that?
Well, to be honest, I'm not very good with what they have the rights to do and what not, because I don't remember in that extent what names are dropped in the appendices or throughout the books, because when you've spent so long reading Tolkien lore, you forget what's in its place exactly. You just have it in your mind constantly. So having read Silmarillion and Trilogy and all the other stuff, I don't know what's exactly in Lord of the Rings appendices and what is not. But I was genuinely surprised that Antar was basically using those names fondly to make a case about the man, especially when you consider like Beren being there as well. And I saw something on Twitter that was even more funny. He's basically name dropping the whole line of ancestors of Elrond. So it's really fun to consider that, how much of an important line of men Elrond comes from, and how lowly he was portrayed then in season 1, and how much he has grown in season 2. I don't know. It's the Elrond fan in me that got this out and appreciated it very, very much.
What about you, Strider? Were you a fan of that, or I've seen in the chat that people are giving Huron some love that he was left out. But what was your take on all that? Was it too fan servicey to drop that stuff, or did you enjoy hearing those names?
No, I think it was a great point, and as we said, it was a cool bit that Sauron was the one using those names as an argument. But Actually, I think Elrond says it in the Fellowship of the Ring when Frodo accepts the ring, he says, "Your name will from now on forevermore stand in the same line of elf friends such as Turin Turambar." I don't know if he says Turin, but he says Tuor, Beren, Erendil. So he names some of them. So I guess that's where they get the rights from. But I thought it was cool. I do agree that Hurin deserved a shout out for sure. I think maybe they chose these specific names because we, in one way or another, see some Easter eggs or there are some mentionings of them. Because in season 1, in that room where the Palantir is in Numenor, there was an axe, and everybody theorized it was Tuor's axe. And Aaron is, of course, we had many references to him, and Baron, son of Barahir. I assume we'll get the Barahir's ring at some point. So I think they chose maybe these 3 names particularly because they are kind of references to some other things. But yeah, I think it was good. It was cool. It was a really nice little moment, and thematically fits. It was really cool. I was happy. The nerd in me was really grateful for that.
Yeah, made me smile too. Well, one of the things I thought was really interesting about this this episode, we touched on this a little bit, but I'd like to delve into it a little more, is the sort of interplay between Celebrimbor and Antar. We see pushback in a way we haven't, and we see sort of levels of deception on screen, I think, at a new level relative to what we've seen so far. And I would love to hear just your guys' general sort of thoughts on it. Like, let's sort of work through the different moments of it. But one thing that one sort of nitpicky thing that I'd love to hear if you guys agree or someone challenge me on. It seems, we get this huge reveal of Antar as being, an emissary of the Valar, right? Someone important, so to speak. And then Celebrimbor, in the beginning of this episode, seems to feel like he has the license to say, no, I'm not going to do this. And I think that adds to a lot of great sort of drama and play in the relationship. But do you think that it was appropriate, like character-wise, that Celebrimbor would feel entitled to say no to an emissary of the Valar? What do you think about it, Johnny?
That's an interesting question. Because we saw the reverence that he held for Antar when he first kind of beheld him coming out of the fire. So it was, he thought, oh my goodness, I should be bowing down to Antar until I mean, then Antar, I suppose he came down to his level, literally, I suppose, from down the steps, and he said, "No, we are, what do you say? We're co-workers, basically." So he kind of was saying he gave him the license in that moment, said, "Look, we're on the same level." Obviously, I think Celebrimbor for the first little while was still looking up to Antar all the time, but I suppose after a long time working side by side, I suppose maybe he started to feel a bit more comfortable with him. Maybe he starts to realize that he can speak to him more freely and more plainly. And also, we shouldn't forget that Celebrimbor is an incredibly wise. He's an incredibly wise Lord of Elves. So he should feel like he has a voice to be able to say, "Look, I don't think this is the correct decision." For me personally, I thought this was one of my favorite parts from the episode. Was the actual fact, I think it was on 3 different occasions that Celebrimbor said no to Antar. And Strider, I believe you mentioned it earlier on, something about a quote. I have the quote here, which was where he says, "It is a game you play, is it not? Sowing seeds in others' minds and then convincing them that the fruit is of their own thought." These little kind of mentions of things like that, it just sounds very like Tolkien to me, and it just sounds like, I don't know, it just sounds like good writing, and not just that sentence, but the idea that he would push back and he would start to realize that there's a bit of manipulation. And then there was another part later on where Antar said back to him something like, "Be careful that you're not being manipulated." Again, just kind of, and it's almost like it makes you laugh that that's coming from Sauron's mouth towards Celebrimbor. And I just think there was some moments like that I remember just kind of smiling to myself watching this episode, thinking like, okay, I really like where they're going with the just seeing these the 2 Charlies on screen together. It was just a joy, and it was definitely, for me, I think that's not just the strongest part of this episode, that was the strongest part of the entire season 1 and season 2. I think these 2 characters coming together. So I'm just hoping we get loads more screen time of Charlie Vickers and Charles Edwards.
Yeah, in particular, I just think the acting from these 2 has just really elevated in this season. I mean, I thought Charlie Vickers was pretty good in the first season, especially as it went along towards the second half. But I was not a huge fan of just the whole character of Celebrimbor and what he was doing on screen in the first season. And I think just both of them have elevated it fantastically in season 2. Coming back to this sort of like back and forth deception element, right? This particular lie that he sort of, I guess the way to put it would, Antar manages to convince Celebrimbor that it was his lie, right? He even says this is a matter of soul as much as it is a matter of craft, or spirit as much as it is a matter of craft. Dave, what did you think about that element? Did that sort of bear fruit for you in terms of like, would that be something that would catch Celebrimbor off guard and sort of get him to change his opinion? What did you think about that? And is this sort of fitting with your sort of whole idea of how this whole sort of flow of deception would go?
Yeah, I thought it was really cool, and I thought it felt real. Like this is what Antar would say to Celebrimbor. It's like Celebrimbor is figuring him out, and Antar just keeps throwing new spanners at him to try and to figure out himself. And I think just the interaction between these two, it just feels so real. Like it feels like this is an actual conversation happening, not just people reading a script and not just, actors being passive with each other. So I think Anatar's manipulation, it's spot on, and he uses this whole real world manipulation tactic of, it's not that you did something wrong, we did something wrong together, and now it's you and me against the world, and we have to like cover for ourselves. And I thought that was a really clever tactic to use, and it's like he can just read Celebrimbor like a book, and he knows exactly how to first play to his ego, but now to manipulate him perfectly. So yeah, overall, absolutely loved this part of the episode. It's top tier for me.
What about you, Strider? I see you put in the comment that you're pointing out that they already worked in season 1, and as we learned at the beginning of the season, that there's at least this theory, right, in world that that once Sauron gains someone's trust, that you can't just simply break away from letting him in. Do you think that's what we're seeing here? And I'm going to add one more level of complexity to this for you, Strider. He says that he won't. This was the one piece of the logic that I had an issue with. It said that he ends up deciding to make the 9 to sort of finish the deal after he said he won't, like 3 times. And it's after this comment about the lie. And I was hung up a little bit on why would, if the 7 were tarnished because they're made under the auspices of a lie, why is it okay to make the 9? What do you think, Strider?
Sorry, perfect timing for a cough. Okay, so those are really good questions. I feel like a lot of these things I asked myself as well, and then kind of like, I think it's kind of on the screen, but it's hard to put like in words. So firstly, the first question, I think they mentioned already several times in the season. I think Gil-galad says it to Galadriel at some point once, or someone says it at some point among the elves. Once he gains your trust, he can sculpt your. Gil-galad says this to Galadriel in episode 1 or 2. Once he gains the creature's trust, he can sculpt their very thoughts, alter their reality. Something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing. So they already set it up, and there's this really interesting moment. There's a couple of them in the Silmarillion. It is mentioned that, okay, this one might be an unfinished tales. I think Gandalf as Olorin used to wander around a bit among the elves unseen, and he would kind of put like little inspirational thoughts or something in their minds and so on to like give them some inspiration. Melkor is also said to have done this thing as well to people when he was set free to wander around Valinor. He was doing the same thing. So this is all very canon stuff. even though it's like very deep lore, it's like a couple of lines across a couple of books, but it is really in the lore that they also referenced the showrunners referenced also the vampires, like the myth about like they ask you to let them in. Once you let them in, they are in there, and they really have this approach, and they have several references throughout the season about this. So I think they've been doing this really well. I'm looking forward to seeing like how it all culminates. But the second question was the 9. I think it was like he said, okay, so the 7 are flawed because we use deceit. He doesn't say you in order to not to antagonize, but he says we to put them together again on the same side of the argument. And then he says, in order to fix this, you have to go and apologize and confess to Gil-galad. But this is the one thing that Celebrimbor doesn't want to do, because it will mean, as he says, he will be forbidden to do any of his art anymore. And this is the one thing he craves the most to create and so on. So I guess Sauron kind of uses this fear of different things and like all this manipulation to be like, okay, you either do this or we go into and finish the work. And I guess after all this pressure and like messing with his mind, Celebrimbor kind of like just connects a couple of things and kind of starts going along with it. It's kind of like a complicated explanation. I hope I managed to convey properly what I was going for. But yeah, that's at least my take on all of this. But it's complex because it's like they are being quite subtle, even though a lot of it is on the screen. There's also a lot of subtlety in like the lines, expressions. Like there's a lot of layers going on. So I hope I didn't make it too complicated.
No, that was great. I only have one more question about this sort of storyline for now, and then let's move to Numenor so that we don't take 2 hours again. We see this interesting thing where someone help me pronounce her name, Myrdain or something.
Myrdaina.
Yeah. She. First of all, I saw a really interesting theory, or just sort of someone pointing out that she's supposed to, in a sense, through her name, represents. Again, I'm going to butcher the actual pronunciation. Gwaith y Myrdain, right? Like all the jewel smiths of Celebrimbor, right? Through her name, she sort of represents all of them, and we see her go invisible, right? That's sort of the first time we've seen something, and it's obviously a bit of a prelude or a foreshadowing of what we see with the One Ring. What did you think of this interpretation of the idea of the seduction of Celebrimbor's smithies? Did you feel that are they being too on the nose, or are you excited to like? Do you think how far do you think they're going to take it? Or are we going to get a little? Is it going to become more than just what we've seen so far, or how do you feel about the way they're sort of playing this aspect of it?
So the thing with manipulation, etc., is that when you are in a space, you don't have to convince just one person. You have to convince everyone. And if not every single one of the Smiths believe that you are indeed there to help them and to guide them and everything, you cannot really take actual lead on anything. Because, again, okay, you have Celebrimbor under your wing, who he is like the leader of and the lord of the region, but at the same time, all these other people are also loyal or somewhat loyal to Gil-galad. So you have to have this trust with everyone to succeed your plans. So I think it's really smart that he's trying basically to establish himself in the community, because that's probably what happened also in the books over a long period of time. Here he has to do it like very quickly due to the time compression again. And with Myrdaina basically representing all of the Smiths, we see that with manipulating her mostly, that means that he manipulates everyone else that is also on the screen. because we also kind of see Myrddania as the leader of the lower smiths and the one that voices mostly the concerns that they have. From that scene, I think I've seen a lot of theories. One is that she's Celebrian in disguise. It's too good to be true. Also, the last time that Galadriel was on the region, why didn't she meet up with her? Why Celebrimbor doesn't know that? There is a lot of whys. Like, I love to be delusional for some things as well. For example, the Stranger being a blue wizard. But we have to keep a base level of reality. I love that they showed her going into the shadow realm, because the 9 rings for mortal men will eventually turn them into ring wraiths and ghosts, basically, that live mostly in the shadow realm and cannot be visible in the actual reality. So I think it's really interesting teasing that, and it's also even more interesting teasing Sauron's shadow form in the shadow realm, because she describes the creature that she saw and how mortified she was of this tall being in flames and his breath reeking of death and all that. And that's why everything was exploding in the workshop, because he was trying to fight it off, basically. And then Antar cleverly twists that to blame Celebrimbor. And we see that when Myrddania takes the ring off, she's facing Celebrimbor and Antar is right behind him. So she would have been seeing the monster right before seeing Celebrimbor in the real realm. I just love that they set it all up that way. And I think it's setting up also a distrust of the elven smiths towards Celebrimbor, and setting more of this trust that they have to Antar, which is very, very clever, and how it shows how much he will mess up with the region in the future episodes. So I'm really excited to get to see more of his deception, because again, I believe this is only the beginning.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I love this comment from Bree. I've been curious, like, how about this element of the lesser rings, the essays in the craft, so to speak, and it does in a sense feel like a nod to that as well. And I think that's just a really nice addition. Did you guys all catch, though? Like, I love the aspect when Myrddania is complimented as looking like Galadriel, and you see her just be like, me? And I thought that was actually a really nice, ode to the fact that she is famously beautiful and also a really well-known, powerful elf. So I thought that the reaction there was really nice and subtle and very strong. You guys ready to move to Numenor? Yes, okay. Cool.
Do you just we wanted also just to mention, like, this shout out to the lesser rings of power as well.
Oh yeah. That's what I was saying a second ago. Yeah.
Sorry, my connection was breaking down. I didn't catch it. Carry on.
No worries. I think it's a really good comment. Okay, so let's move to Numenor. This is interesting because in some respects I agree with what was it you were saying, Dave, earlier, that in some respects this maybe is a section that falls flat, and I really want to dig into why you think that. But I also thought it was in some aspects some of the strongest stuff I've seen in Numenor so far. So but since you already brought it up, why don't you start and let us know, like, what was it about it that you felt fell flat, and just wax on, go for it.
Yeah, sure. So the part that's on the screen now, I think, actually, to contradict what I said earlier, I think this is probably one of my favorite scenes from Numenor so far. Just seeing Pharazôn finally is the king, but yet that's not enough. He already is sowing seeds. He's telling his son, like, look, Simba, everything you see here. No, he's basically saying, like, the elves are mocking us by having tall Erisea out of our sights. So I thought this interaction between him and Kemen was really good, and I'm really liking the portrayal of, oh, I can't remember his name, Gravel, isn't it? The actor that plays Ar-Pharazôn. So I thought this scene was brilliant, but then later, it's the scenes that we get with. I'm not even just talking lore wise. I just mean we're seeing it seems like a theater production where there's like maybe 30, 40 people on set. Kemen and Aarion, just because they're being shown as the good shown as the bad guys, they seem to have to be there overseeing every single little thing that happens on the streets when, you know, it should be just maybe some guard or lieutenant or something. It's just, I don't know what it is about Numenor. When we saw it in season 1, it seemed like it was so grand. The music was incredible. We got loads of wide shots of the scope of the city. And now all of a sudden we're just like on these small little sets. Everyone's wearing almost the identical costumes that they wore in season 1. And then the very last scene, I don't know if I'm just jumping way too much here, but like I thought the action with Elendil being held back by the one arm of one guard, and the guards all stand around doing nothing while Kemen was being struck. You know, I just found it very hard to believe all those action sequences and people in the background not doing very much. So that would be my gripe with this episode with Numenor, because I feel like that was probably the weakest I've seen Numenor so far in the show, but all the other stuff was probably some of the strongest I've seen in the Rings of Power in general. So it was kind of a big duality for me. So yeah.
All right. I would love to hear. I'll dig into some of the specifics of this in a moment, but I would love to hear if anyone had sort of a contrary sort of opinion and was a fan of this, the way that Numenor was portrayed in this episode. It doesn't have to be. I'm just only if it's there for the taking.
Well, it's definitely setting us up for. It's putting us into the right position for now having this kind of the faction that remains faithful that are kind of almost being pushed underground, and this ceremony that was happening at this shrine. I know that they said it was the oldest shrine in the city, and that's probably the reason it was there. But it seemed almost like they were hiding out in these catacombs, and they were like, "This is a underground ceremony. We can't let any of the king's men see us doing this." So I like that they're going to build up this kind of civil war kind of feeling between things, because obviously we know how this is going to go, and we're going to end up with, you know, human sacrifices and all these kind of things possibly down the road of people that are a part of the faithful who are, you know, going to come to an ill end, if we've to quote Pharazôn when he's talking to Kemen as well. So I definitely think that they're setting it up for it's going to need to be this way going forward. But I agree also with what we were saying with some of the action, like seeing Kemen overpower Valandil in there and almost drown him. There's no reason why that should happen. And we all look, we can see them on screen. Valandil is a much bigger man. He's he's lived a life of being on the Sea Guard, and now he's a lieutenant in the army. And Kemen has probably just spent his life, reading books and getting manicures. So I don't.
It's like me.
So it was a little bit unbelievable, that part. And then, like Dave said, there's a part there where there was a soldier who was holding Elendil back, and he basically was holding him back with one arm. And Elendil again is a very large man. He could clearly get past that. And again, there was some other soldiers there just kind of leaning on their spears in the background and not really standing to attention, even though their commander was getting struck across the face and was getting a sword put to his throat. So it just seemed a little bit strange at times. So the action, not fantastic in that scene. But as I said, to get to a means to an end, I think that going forward now we're at a good place. But maybe they could have maybe worked a little bit more on the action.
I like how my question was, does anyone have anything good to say about this?
The funny thing is, I have a sort of good thing to say, but it turns again to be bad. Because
I'm sorry.
I was thinking the other day, like, Numenor is not supposed to be at its highest. It's supposed to be at its lowest, because at this time we have we are closer to the downfall of Numenor than its peak. But because the show has done this time compression and has presented it very differently, everyone thinks that Numenor is supposed to be at its highest, but the Faithful versus Kingsman has been existing for a long time, and it sort of makes sense, but at the same time it doesn't, because of the time compression that they choose to do. Like, to get it a bit into perspective time-wise, so we are at the point of sacking of a region, and before the founding of Rivendell. During the founding of, a bit after the founding of Rivendell, this will be mentioned actually tomorrow in a video that we will drop. The Numenorians are going there to help with a siege that is happening, and they are sent by Tar Minastir, who is a lot of generations before Tar Miriel and Ar-Pharazôn. And it's actually during the colonies in Doors Of Duran where they were established. So we were supposed to be that level of men actually helping the elves and helping a lot. But the point that we are supposed to be now in Numenor with the time compression, it's right before the downfall and the sinking of Numenor, because of how far away the men have become from the elves and from the faith. So it makes sense in lore-wise that they appear so weak and some of the aspects are so weak, but at the same time, they haven't built that up. So the people are assuming that it's this strong empire when it's not. And I think that's the problem that the show hasn't really faced. And the corruption hasn't really been seen in the people of Numenor. For example, in my opinion, if in season 1 they showed Pharazôn trying to manipulate Numenorians into turning away from the faith while Miriel was in Middle-earth, maybe we will be in a more equal and normal storytelling place-wise for Numenor. So at the same time, I have problems with the Numenorian storyline not building those many things up and not being up to that. But at the same time, I don't have a problem with Numenor being on the Satyrs, because it's supposed to be. It's gonna fall in a season or two. It's gonna be underwater, and it has to go that way. So yeah. Actually, it was too long, but yeah.
I want to come back to some other stuff in a minute, but since that originally was asking if anyone had anything that they liked about it, I just want to throw in really quick something that I did actually like about this. And I actually, Johnny or Dave, I can't remember which one of the two of you was talking about the fight and how it was. I think it was you, Johnny, who were saying that the size of Valandil and then being like held underwater by Kemen and stuff was just really unbelievable. Totally agree. But the part that I thought was sort of, as you guys were talking about earlier, where we're seeing some really actually good writing in this, was this moment of Elendil. If you take out the problems with the action and stuff, Elendil being the one who has Valandil give mercy, and then Kemen stabbing him from behind, was just really this moment of like, and it makes you just hate Kemen, and you feel so tragic for Valandil and everything. And to cause that sort of reaction towards these characters, I think does show some really good writing in terms of the twists and turns of the narrative of this moment, if not the actions. Strider, I think you had one or two things you wanted to say about this. Go ahead.
Yeah, so first of all, I just want to give another quick shout out to this actor on the screen. I think he's doing a great job playing Draco Malfoy's older brother. I think so. I think what we said, I agree with most of it, but I think that the key thing I remember differently, I might also be wrong. Numenor is supposed to be at its peak here, but it's about the moral decline. That is the fall of Numenor. That's the actual key theme there. Like they keep rising as this huge civilization. They become the greatest civilization in the entire world ever, probably, in all of Tolkien's writings. They have numerous colonies and all of that, but they actually, exactly as we said, we had this kings like Tarminas and so on before, and this whole struggle between the faithful and everybody, and Kingsman was going on for generations, but it's the moral downfall. They are more richer, they are stronger, they are more numerous, they are better and better. They keep having more and more colonies across Middle Earth, but for the reasons of time compression, they had to cut all of that down. So it's like the moral downfall is the key. But here, I guess this approach in the show kind of makes more sense because of all this time compression, I guess. Yeah, that was just like a quick little comment there.
Nice. Hey, I know we're gonna
Thank you,
lose.
Gregory.
We're gonna lose Johnny in a couple minutes, so I want to swing to him for sort of what we normally do in our last thoughts from people here. I want to get your start with the negative. Your least favorite thing from the show, your favorite thing from this episode, least favorite thing from the episode, favorite thing from the episode, and one thing you're looking forward to next week.
My least favorite thing would have to go from the Numenor line, I suppose, the Numenor plot. Even though I would agree that some of the things that we saw at the beginning with Pharazôn and Kemen, that kind of this is the real reason why we should be seeing the Numenorians turning away from the faithful and turning away from the elves. It's nothing to do with the elves taking their jobs. It's all about this kind of the enviness or the envy of this immortality that the elves have, and that they feel like they're almost being mocked, as Dave mentioned before as well. So I really enjoyed that part of it, but then there are other parts that we already mentioned that kind of just didn't seem quite so believable. And if I have to give one specific moment, I would say I don't really like the character or what they're doing with the character of Eärien. I think it has some potential, and it's really quite interesting that it would be the daughter of Elendil who would be one to kind of turn away and could potentially end up being one of the architects for building a temple to Morgoth, which is lots of people's predictions. So I think that she has a lot of potential, but I think it's just, again, because of the time compression, it's just way too dramatic and way too huge of a switch of character in too short of a time. So I think that they had, I mean, it was a great potential for that, but I don't think that landed as well as they were hoping. Maybe I saw someone in the chat saying that they think a lot of the scenes from Numenor had to be cut because of lengths of episodes and things like that. So that could be a reason for why it doesn't feel as believable, these changes in character and personality. But that would be my main negative. And it's not a huge negative. I enjoyed pretty much most things in this episode. Best thing, again, I don't know if I can go for an exact specific moment, but I think just nearly every scene of Sauron, Antar, and Celebrimbor on scene together, I think the manipulation and the deceiving nature that we're seeing Antar and the way it's being portrayed by Charlie Vickers, and I think that Charles Edwards, I think he's flying a little bit under the radar. I think that he has such an expressive face. He shows so much emotion. So his acting has been just incredible, I think, in this episode. So yeah, those would be my two standout moments. And what was the other thing? Something I'm looking forward to
next week.
I think from what I just said, I'm looking forward to more scenes with these two characters on screen. I'm looking forward to seeing Antar just worm his way into other people's minds even more. We got to see he's really got a hold of Celebrimbor now. He's starting to get a hold on Myrdania, and I'm loving it. I'm loving that. So I'm really looking forward to seeing much more. So that's it. And I know that Dave is going to be able to hang out for a little bit longer. So I'm sorry to have to leave all of you wonderful folk, but it has been a blast. And yeah, this is a great episode.
Johnny, pleasure as always. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here.
Guys. All right, guys. We'll see you again soon.
See you.
Take care.
Well,
I thought he'd never leave.
Brotherly love, right there.
Melon head, singular.
Oh no.
Well, we absolutely jumped past most of the questions I had ready for Numenor. But let's and I think we already tackled a lot of stuff I was thinking about, like Numenor happening so fast and stuff like this. But I want to dig into for just a moment Eärien and her relationship with her dad, her relationship with Kemen. Like, where do you think this is all coming from? I mean, Johnny just said that he thinks this has potential, could happen in an interesting way, but maybe it isn't so far. What are you guys' takes on this? Do you feel the same, or like, where are you hoping for this character? If nothing good in your opinion has happened with it so far, what do you think has been wrong with it? Is the time compression, and what do you hope will come out of it? And Dave, let's start with you. Now that you don't have to listen to Johnny because he's not here anymore.
No, I don't mean that. I'm only joking. So with Eärien, I think from the beginnings of season 1, this was something that we kind of suspected that she might end up being one of the followers of, building temples dedicated to Melkor. I think ever since she came out that she was an architect, we were like, wouldn't that be cool? But I think the execution is a little bit strange for me, just because I don't believe her reasons of going against her father. I'm trying, like, every day since I've watched the episode, I'm trying to like say to myself, what exactly is she annoyed about? She doesn't like the queen, and she's annoyed that the queen and her father are friends. But like, what did the queen do wrong? Muriel just sent an army over to Middle Earth, and people died, including who she thinks her brother. Like, why is that a reason to go against her father? I think if anything, in this suffering, she should be taking solace and comfort in her family. But no, she's kind of going on this war path. So maybe if that person that commented earlier, if what they say is correct and we're just missing some Numenor scenes, I would very much like to see those, because I wouldn't have any problem if the show was 2.5 hours every week. So I don't know why the runtime is an issue. But yeah, I just feel, for me, the main thing is just not believing her motives. I just don't feel like it's as real as some of the other stuff that we are seeing, like the Antar Celebrimbor dialogue. So yeah, that's my main gripe with her.
It does feel like there's just some, like, almost like a whole episode just got lost somewhere along the way that, like, gave us some sense of the reason for the arc and everything. And again, I said earlier that I thought I noticed the time compression really strong with the elves and the dwarves. It might be Numenor that's suffering the most from it. I guess it's hard to say. We saw in the comments people talking about the idea of the Morgoth's temple and stuff, as you were mentioning, and also that eventually Sauron in theory is going to come to Numenor, and that will there be anything left of Pharazôn to corrupt? Strider, what do you think about that? Do you think we're going to get to see all this happen, and have they left us enough rope to see any sort of character development from Pharazôn?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. I wonder how far. Yeah, like I think we all assumed that the way Eregion was focused this season, Numenor will be next. But yeah, like, how much is there to corrupt? I guess, like, they already interrupted and already kind of started persecuting the faithful in this episode. They destroyed this. They jump in, crash the ceremony. They destroy the statue. Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I hope that they can do what they did with Celebrimbor this season. Hopefully, they can figure out a way to do this. It's also, I think, this all this time compression, all this, like, timeline shifting, like, this storyline moves upward, this one moves downward in order to get them all balanced. When will Sauron come back to Numenor? How will he come back here? Like, when does he get captured? What's the timeline there? Because yeah, like, Pharazôn has to do some things before Sauron comes here. I don't know. I think that's a tricky question. I hope they can figure out a really good answer for that. But I think it is really a shame that a lot of the storyline got cut. I think especially Kemen but I think especially of all the characters, Eärien the most got slightly hurt in this way, because we really see just a couple of scenes with her, and then within like a space of like 4 or 5 scenes, she's just like persecuting the faithful, basically, which is a really big jump. It's kind of theoretically understandable. It feels like, season 8 of Game of Thrones, where I don't have an issue with a lot of the things that happened, but it's like we need like 3 seasons to get to that point that we see on screen. So it feels like with her character as well, if there was more with her, we could buy more of it, because I guess I think the actress has been having fun maybe this season more than the first one, because she has more to do, Emma Horvath. But yeah, it feels like there's not much to it, and it feels like she's just really turning around, and then giving her these little breadcrumbs of, oh, but Valadil, you're my friend, or talking to her father or something. I don't know. But I feel like the same thing on a larger scale is true also for Farazan. This line that we mentioned, like, it was really cool that they finally mentioned this fear of that, like this, the scene from the beginning where they're talking about the elves, seeing the elves across the sea. It's all really good stuff, but I honestly, I'm a bit worried now. I'm not really worried, but this second season gives me hope for the ability to really pull this off and make it really good in the next season. But also, I am kind of like holding myself back to hope that this might end up like a really good character arc for Farazan and Numor in general.
All right,
I don't know. I think that's going to be a big point for everybody this season.
I got 2 last things before we wrap up real quick. The first, I want to, just so we can have a little time to let it run, I want to run a poll, and this is based off some of the stuff I'm seeing in comments about Cayman potentially becoming an Nazgul and stuff like that. And Kyle, if you don't mind putting this poll together for me, I want to hear of all the characters, because we're going to see the 9 rings in the next episode or 2 for sure. They've talked about they're going to be kings of men and blah blah blah. I think we've already seen likely at least one person who will become one of the Nazgul. So the poll I want to run is, which of these characters is most likely to be a Nazgul? Kemen, Theo, and someone help me. Who's the third one that we want to throw in here?
There's the Lord Belzegar.
Anyone else of the sort?
Eärien, perhaps.
Eärien as well is
You think Eärien? Okay, so it's
yeah.
So those, let's put in Eärien then. Those 3, and then the option D is all of the above. But only pick that if you actually think it's going to be all 3. Kyle, thanks for putting that together. And let's really quick. What do you guys think? Super quick answers, because I want to split about
I think Kemen is a very strong contender along with Theo. Like, these 2 is very strong. Also, shout out to the person that made the meme that Sauron is making the rings for the first Nazgul wedding between Eärien and Kemen. It's made my day. It's perfect. So yeah.
What about you, Dave?
Yeah, I think I've been pretty much on board for Theo to be a ring wraith from pretty much episode 1. I thought, like, this guy definitely has evil in his blood. And I think the fact that now that Bronwyn is gone, I don't know where else his story can go. I did see some theories where people were saying that maybe he could be the King of the Dead, because he's now been titled as the Lord of Pelalgir and has had a little bit of an interaction with Isildur, so that could be cool as well. But Kemen I never really suspected, but I do think that it was interesting when, was it Antar in this episode said, rings from Numenor to Rhûn for great men from Numenor to Rhûn. So I just think the fact that he's name dropped Numenor and Rhûn, now we're kind of going, I know there was our
basically west and east. But like we're specifically now thinking, okay, who from Rune could end up being a Nazgul, who from the other place as well. Sorry, it's getting late. My brain has gone to mush. Yeah, so I think Kemen could be a great shout. I never really suspected it before this episode, but yeah, I think he definitely could be. Could even be the Witch King, possibly.
What about you, Strider? Pick one or all of the above. What's
I think all of the above are definitely options. I think I think it said that 3 at least are known to have been of Numenorean descent, so it would fit. I hope none of them are the Witch King, though. I think whoever ends up as the Witch King has to be. Someone said in the comments. Yeah, here's the comment. I'll just put it on the screen. Like someone kind of like Adar, like someone who has the gravitas for that. None of these characters have the gravitas for that. Like if Adar wasn't an elf, if he was somehow human, like he would be, I think, like a perfect someone to turn into the Witch King and be like, okay, this is a very impressive, very scary person to be the main servant of Sauron. Like that would be disastrous for all the Free Peoples. So I feel like none of them fits for this role, but I think all of them could end up getting the ring.
All of the above, I guess. Then, but
Yeah,
do you actually
all
think
of the above.
Arian will become a ring wraith, though? This is the question is, who do you think's the most likely?
I think Kemen is the most likely, but I think it would be actually to be probably very lore breaking in some way. Like we would probably know. It would have been mentioned if one of Elendil's family turned into a ring wraith. So I don't think that will happen. But I think it would be cool within the show if it did. But I don't want it to happen. If it's a weird emotion I'm having here. It sounds like a cool
Already.
idea, but also it's like it really doesn't fit. So maybe let's not do that. But yeah, I think Kemen is the likeliest one of everyone we've seen so far. If I had to make one bet, I would say Kemen is going to get the ring.
That would probably be mine as well. Well, I'm glad that Adar is getting mentioned because that's the last thing I wanted to bring up. We end the episode for the second episode in a row with a very brief moment of Galadriel and Adar. And I just want to hear your guys' thoughts real quick about where you think this is going. I mean, we get obviously like a clue. He wants to ally with her. But I just want to hear a quick thought. And again, we're at it's 9:30 already. So, we've been in stream for almost an hour and a half. So just one quick thought about like what you guys think is going to happen with these other than, like, how do you think this is going to unfold? Do you have any theories or thoughts? Let's start with you, Dave.
Well, I think we're going to get that dinner table scene that we've seen pictures of before the season came out. I'm guessing Adar has already said to Galadriel that they have a common enemy. So I assume he's going to want to tempt Galadriel for a team up. And I'm hopeful that she's not going to do this, and I'm pretty sure she won't, judging by the character she's been so far, and definitely judging by the lore. So I can't imagine her leading an army of orcs to attack Sauron. But I think I don't know. I think Adar is going to. Maybe he suspects that she has the ring, and I don't know how he would even know about these rings being forged, but maybe he suspects that she has some power that would be very advantageous over Sauron, and he wants to get her on his team. But I assume it's going to play out, and she's going to say no and escape somehow. So those are my thoughts. They might be bland, but they are true.
What about you, V? Do you think there's any chance that they end up teaming up?
I think that Adar will take from his old master the whole mansplain, manipulated, man-whore thingy and just straight up make fool of her again. I'm sorry, Galadriel, but you haven't shown the strongest signs of not believing someone when you don't have to believe them. So I think he is gonna promise her an alliance, and he definitely gonna bring up the whole we have a common enemy and stuff like that. But we have to remember his priority are his children, and given the genocidal thoughts that Galadriel had in the previous season and that expressed to that, I don't think he's gonna like feel safe trusting his children around her. So I don't know. But at the same time, maybe she will try to make her release and not entirely believe him. I don't know. Like, it's very, very. It can go a lot of ways. Yeah, I will leave it at that.
What about you, Strider? Drop something on us that we don't expect. Give us a theory about what we're going to see with this dynamic between the two of them.
I think Adar is. I think so far he has been the most practical, on point, logical leader of any leader we have seen so far in the show. He has the goal. He knows what the obstacle towards that goal is, and he's going for that. And if uniting with, I mean, if you okay, I just want to gush, but I'll wait for a few sentences. So far he has been very practical about everything, and if he has a chance to ally himself with someone against Sauron because he knows how dangerous Sauron is, I don't see why he would not take that. So I feel like whatever he offers, it will be like, hey, this is what needs to happen. I have you in my you're kind of my prisoner at this time, but I am open for cooperation because that guy is right there, and I want him gone. You want him gone. Let's do this. I think I just feel like it wouldn't be out of. I think it would be like really straight on the point with him because Adar has really been direct with everything he's been doing, everything he's been saying so far, and I feel like Sam Hazeldine has done tremendous job, absolutely amazing job taking over this role. I just love Adar. Might be my favorite character of the show. And I'm looking forward to seeing this. But I think it's going to be a good scene, whatever it is, however it ends up. And I think whatever he decides, I think it will make sense story-wise from his point a lot. And I'm really looking forward to seeing that. The more Adar we have this season, the happier I am because I don't think he's going to stay here for a long time.
Well, let's wrap up. Least favorite, and one thing we're looking forward to next week. And I guess since I'm at the top, I'll go first. My least favorite is probably for like picking a single moment. That moment when Valandil gets overpowered by puny little Kemen. That was ridiculous. My favorite moment, not to be a broken record here, but the aspects of Charlie Vickers' acting and the manipulation of Celebrimbor. I thought there was just some really significant, and who was it who called out that particular line, the bearing of fruits of his efforts to manipulate? Just some really, really good writing this week. And then one thing I'm looking forward to next week, I'm looking forward to, well, without really knowing what's going to happen, I know I'm one of the only ones. I have lots of problems with the Harfoots, but I do want to see. I'm just kind of curious, like what's good, or I guess it's not so much the Harfoots, but like Tom Bombadil and the Stranger. I'm curious where that's going. All right, V, you're up.
Yeah. So I think it's not too early to ask for an extended edition of the show, apparently, to get all the missing Numenorian scenes, because my least favorite moment are some of the parts in Numenor, and Valandil's death is my least favorite, not because I didn't like the scene, like it was heartbreaking, but I wished that it happened later because we knew Valandil's end was coming. The youngest son of Isildur was named after him, probably. So we knew at some point that he will die. I just hoped it will come later because he was an amazing character, and I would love to see him more aiding the faithful and going out of Numor and stuff like that. So it's my least favorite because of that. My favorite is probably, I don't know, some of the scenes of Antar. I really can't pinpoint a favorite moment because all those scenes with Antar and Celebrimbor were so good that they're like one block for me. And what I'm looking forward, I guess the confrontation and like the alliance, let's say, of Adar and Galadriel and how that will come to play. I hope we will get to see more of that in the next episode and how Galadriel is basically a prisoner and all that. So yeah.
Guys, everyone in the chat, please let us know what your favorite parts were, least favorite parts, what you're looking forward to. We'd love to see what you guys are anticipating. Dave, why don't you go ahead? Let us know. What are your thoughts?
So everyone's talked about Numenor, so I'll pick a different part of Numenor, but still Numenor was my worst part of the episode, and probably maybe just when Elendil punched Kemen, who is the son of the king of Numenor. Everyone just stood around and waited for Kemen to say, hold him. And then when he goes to punch him, Valandil's able to walk up and grab his arm. So I just think that why aren't there more guards, and why are the guards that are there not doing anything except standing around? So it's mostly aesthetical for me. I actually liked what they're doing with the lore in this episode for Numenor. Anyways, best part of the episode, everyone's talked about it. It's definitely Antar, Charlie Vickers, and Charles Edwards' performance. But I'm just gonna pick out and say I think the writing in these scenes was so good, and probably some of the best we've seen so far. It's just believable. It sounds like two characters actually talking to each other, having a discussion, having discourse, and figuring it out. So I found myself being surprised by a lot of what was happening. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe he said no. And oh my God, I can't believe he's now said that we are at fault for the Seven Rings. So really enjoyed that. And I can't wait to see more in the future. Yeah. Greg, you hinted at it, but Tom Bombadil, I'm a huge fan of Rory Kinnear's performance. So I just can't wait to see, like, that episode had loads of Tom Bombadil and the Stranger, and then just stopped halfway through. And then we went to Pelargir and never saw any more Tom Bombadil. So I want to see more of him. Where is he? What's he up to?
Good stuff. Strider, bring us home.
Yeah, so what V said, I mean, actually, both V and Dave so far said about the Valandil scene. I feel like generally choreography of like fight scenes often feels lacking, and like what was just mentioned about like the guards standing around, one of them holding Elendil like kind of like this instead of like just get him by the throat or something. Like it didn't feel powerful enough for Elendil to be held like that.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like these moments aren't great, and also like what we said, I think that's a fantastic point. I was always also really sorry. I'm also really sorry that Valandil didn't die doing something specifically with Isildur. I hope we get like a flashback scene maybe at some point between the two of them when Isildur is naming one of his children, one of his sons.
Yeah.
So I think that scene was, yeah, in several ways, I not my favorite moment. Though story-wise, it was still pretty good. Eregion has been absolutely fantastic, so I'll give a shout out specifically to the Unseen World moment. I think that was pretty cool. With it's been among us all along that this huge being of fire for skin and pitiless eyes and so on. I think that was really cool. I enjoyed that a lot. Unseen World is one of those mysterious things about Tolkien that it's hard to fully grasp. So they can play with the rules there a bit more, I feel, and I think this is what they did. And what I'm looking forward to the most, definitely in the strangest storyline, as Dave said, loved as well Tom Bombadil. It was really, I mean, as I said, like episode 4 might still be my favorite episode despite this. But yeah, I cannot wait for that, and to see where the Stranger storyline is going as well. I think that's going to be really nice to see, and I hope we get some more of the singing, at least at some point in the season. Yeah, that's my bit.
I love this comment. I mean, it's so funny that Tom Bombadil hasn't changed his lyrics in thousands of years. That's really funny to me. Hey guys, this was great. Hey, thank you so much to the Melonheads for joining us. Dave, anything you'd like to say? Would you like to pitch your socials or anything? Give our listeners something to tune into.
Sure, yeah. You saw our Twitter page earlier. It's at melon_heads. That's melon with 2 L's. Speak, friend, and enter. And you can also check us out. We're on Instagram, Melonheads Official. But we're on our podcast. We're doing weekly lore episodes normally. Also news episodes. So reacting to anything. It could be War of the Rohirrim or the Hunt for Gollum now, which is going to be a new thing. But yeah, at the moment, we're breaking down weekly episodes of The Rings of Power. So you can check us out there. We're on YouTube now as well. So you can see our faces in the flesh.
And thanks again for being on the show. Always a good time. And everybody, if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. Strider V, thanks again. Everyone should give Strider some appreciation for all the work he puts into making sure this happens. And Kyle on the background, great job. As always, everybody,
and Gregory for
us.
hosting these streams in an absolutely masterful way from like every week, every single week so far. Thank you as well, because
thank you all so much.
A lot of prep for this, so yeah, thank you, and thanks Dave for being with us, and thank you V for just being awesome, and thanks everybody in the comments.
Thank you everyone for being amazing.
that escalated.
We'll see you next Sunday. Bye.
No Mario.